When he was in the streets of Philly, playgrounds, he was you know what they call him?
What?
Jesus. That's what they call him, Jesus. Because he was the truth. Then the white media got a hold of it. Then they got to call him Black Jesus. You know, he can't just be Jesus. He got to be Black Jesus, you know. But still, he was the truth.
What up, y'all? It's your boy, Mr. Mar Sharp, Shortman Filmworks in the building. And we got another episode of the Everyday Man's Film Reviews for you guys today, all right? And today, we are going to be talking about the 1998, I don't want to call it a classic, but I don't want to call it a classic, because can I say a lot of people talk about this movie? I don't know if a lot of people talk about this movie, but I'm going to call it a classic to me because I like this movie, okay? So we're going to talk about the 1998 classic movie, of which I call it, He Got Game, starring Denzel Washington and Ray Allen, and it was directed by Spike Lee. I first came into contact with this movie back in, I want to say 2003. I came in contact with this movie. It was on DVD, and I was in college at the time. And the school's library was renting out all these different DVDs. And this was one of those Spike Lee movies that I never got a chance to see when it first came out in the theaters. And Spike Lee, for me, is very instrumental in me, inspiring me to be a filmmaker. And a lot of his stories and a lot of just the way he does things is just inspiring me to just continue with what I'm doing with me writing and pursuing dreams and goals of directing and being a filmmaker, which we're gonna put that out there in the universe that is going to happen eventually. You know what I mean? But in regards to this movie, I've been a heavy Spike Lee fan. It took me a while to kind of get up into Spike Lee movies. I can't say that I was a hardcore fan of Spike Lee's movies, like when She's Gotta Have It came out, because I was 6 years old when that movie came out, and I really didn't understand shit about what was going on in that movie. I didn't actually watch that movie until I was, I didn't watch that movie until I was like 13. It's like 1993, and they was running it on cable a lot when this movie first came out. Not first came out, when it actually came on cable. At that particular time, they was running it a lot. And even back then, looking at the movie now, because I've seen it as I've gotten older and I understand it more as I've gotten older, and actually getting into the Netflix series that he had titled by the same name made me go back and watch the movie again, and it made me see a lot of stuff that I missed in that movie when I was young. But that's another video for another time. But I didn't really get into Spike Lee movies until, what was the movie after Do the Right Thing? I want to say around like was it Mo Better Blues? Was it Mo Better Blues or Jungle Fever? Somewhere around that time, around the time when Mo Better Blues and Jungle Fever came out, that's when I really kind of started opening up my eyes to Spike Lee movies. Also, too, back in 1991, when it was just this emergence of black film going around in that year, where it was so many different films coming out by black filmmakers. So that really kind of opened up my eyes to a lot of what Spike Lee was doing as well. But this movie came out in 98, and like I said, I didn't see it until 2003, and I watched it again. It was on Amazon Prime not too long ago, and I watched it again. And seeing this movie again, it's different when you watch movies when you get older and you got a little bit more understanding of what's going on in the world versus when you watch them like 20 years ago. You know, you're young, you still got your own impressions of what you think the world is. And then when you get older and you lived some life, then you see, oh wow, this is how the world runs, and you see what's going on, what's going in the world as you get older. So pretty much like this with this movie, that's how I kind of was with this movie, watching it again. I'm not heavily into sports, but I can dig it. You know what I mean? I can watch it and I can get the gist of what's going on. I'm not one of them guys that's a hardcore football fan, hardcore NBA fan. I watch them with the understanding that I know what's going on, and I participated in them when I was young. But getting to this movie has a lot to do with the pressures of what comes with, a promising college college sports player, whether he be basketball, whether he be football, but this gears more to more around basketball, and just the ills that come along with the pressure that's on this particular individual, you know. So anyway, I'm gonna get into the movie because I feel like I'm leaning off into another direction. I'm gonna get into the movie. It stars Denzel Washington as Jake Shuttlesworth, and he's the father of Jesus Shuttlesworth, who's the top prospect in the country of being one of the top high school basketball players at the time. And they're trying, and not say there, but you have so many different forces and so many different people around him want to know what kind of decision he's going to make on choosing a college or where he wants to go. And with Denzel Washington's character, with Jake Shuttlesworth, he's in prison for the murder of his wife accidentally, but he's in prison for the murder of his wife, and the governor gives him like a week pardon to go out there and try to persuade his son to attend this college called Big State, which I believe the governor in the movie is kind of like an alumnus of the school, and he gives him a week to persuade his son to go to this school, you know, and Jay gets out of prison, and as he gets out of prison, he goes through pretty much trying to reconcile with his son because of him killing his mother. Like I said, accidentally, him killing his mother, you know, he pretty much leaves his son and his daughter to pretty much fend for themselves. I mean, they're not out there fending for themselves because they get the care of their aunt and their uncle, but he's, you know, his children are left out there, and Jesus takes on this, I won't say this personality, but he takes on this hatred toward his father, in which, you know, and I believe, you know, Jesus was probably I'd say he probably was about 8 or 9 years old. Well, I can't say he was like 8 or 9 years old. He probably was about 7 or 8 at the time when his mother was killed, because I think this is like 9 years later. He's 17. He's a 17-year-old teenager, getting ready to choose a college. He's about to graduate, so he's either 17 or he's 18. So let's just say that, you know, his mother got killed. You know, his mother was killed 10 years prior to this movie. You know, and he's carried this hatred toward Jake for so long. You know what I mean? And Jake wants to do right, and he knows what he did. He knows what he did, and he pretty much has to, you know, he has to come to terms with that. He has to come to terms that, you know, I murdered my wife accidentally, but in a lot of ways, and I want to say in a lot of ways, I want to kind of jump right into it, but I'm taking my time with it, because you can see that Jake has a lot of flaws. He has a lot of flaws as a man, as we all do, because we all human beings. We all have flaws. He has flaws as a man. He has flaws as a parent. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Can I say that he has flaws as a parent? Because I don't have any kids yet. I don't have any kids. So watching the story and how Jake raises Jesus, it's kind of like, and I take it, and I kind of put a parallel to it, because I see how my father raised me and my brother, and my father was I won't say he wasn't a hard man. He was strict, but he was also compassionate in what in how he was raising me and my brother. And, you know, I credit it always that, you know, to me, I had the best father in the world. You know what I mean? Because there's things now that I learned from my father when I was young that are now resonating, and they're coming out through me, you know, as a 41-year-old man. So in watching that, I see what was Jake's motivation. You know what I mean? And you can see what Jake's motivation is, but he kind of pushes Jesus a little too hard. But then you have some parents that be like, well, you know, did he push him too hard? Because he pretty much pushes Jesus to greatness. You know, for him becoming this top tier basketball player. He pretty much pushes him to greatness, even though he has to go through a lot of strict lengths to do it. You know what I mean? And to me, in this movie, it raises the question that a lot of parents like to live their dreams out through their children. And with Jake, he's living his dreams of being this basketball player. He's living it out through his son, even though he's teaching his son these fundamentals of being a basketball player and being pretty much becoming the man that he's going to become, it comes out in a way where he's like he's living through his son. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of parents out there that do that with their children. You know what I mean? I was fortunate enough that I have my parents push me into doing things that they wanted me to do. They gave me the free range to explore and be who I wanted to be. With a little bit of push. Because I think every parent has a little bit of push of what they want their children to do and what they want them to become. Overall, I just think parents just want their children to be they want them to be all right in the world. You know what I mean? And some of the decisions that your children might make, the parents might not agree with, but you have to give them the free range to kind of live. And I know I'm saying that right now because I know my perspective will probably change when I have a child. But at the same time, it's like, where do you draw that line? You know what I mean? I think with Jake's character, he's pretty much on that line. When you see different scenes of him, what he's doing with Jesus, he's on that line of being, he's right on that line. He's like, okay, well, I want to push him, but he goes to the extreme at one particular time in the film. But anyway, in this film, you see Jake gets out of prison. He's given I guess in a way he's given a pardon, if you want to put it like that. But Jake refers to it as a work release program. He has a week to get the job done, and he has to repair pretty much the relationship between him and his son. You know what I mean? And I love the way that Spike Lee did this in this film, because he wrote it and he directed. I love the way he did it, where he didn't quite repair. He didn't quite repair the relationship between Jake and Jesus, but in a way he did. You know what I mean? Because you can see in the beginning, they got a friction going on that's just like, oh my God. You know what I mean? I don't want to say oh my God, but it's understandable. You know what I mean? It's understandable of the friction that Jesus has for his father. You know what I mean? Because all he sees is, his father murdered his mother. You know what I mean? And pretty much he murdered his mother out of anger. You know what I mean? It was an accident, but it was still out of anger. You know what I mean? And then he carries this hatred. He carries this hatred for so many years. You know what I mean? And then when Jake finally shows up, and then he doesn't want to tell him why he's there, but he knows what he has to do. But it's like, he's in that mid zone. I guess you want to call it, he's in that limbo. He's in limbo because he wants to tell him what he has to do, but he can't tell him because he knows the type of relationship that he has with his son. You know what I mean? Him and his daughter's all good. There's a scene between Denzel Washington and his daughter, and she's a little bit hesitant to talk to him. You know what I mean? But then, she opens up to him. You know what I mean? And I figure, she probably was a baby by the when the mama was killed. Maybe I figure maybe it's like maybe 1 or 2 when the father was killed. But no, maybe not, because I think the sister's like, if Jesus is 17, I think the sister's probably like maybe 12, 13 years old. So they could have been too much that far in age. You know what I mean? And I'm guessing it. They could be a little bit closer together in age as well. But she's a little bit more accepting to what happened. You know what I mean? We don't really see too many scenes with her when they flashback. We don't see too many scenes of the daughter. So that's why I was figuring she's probably young. You know what I mean? But I know that the story focuses more on Jake and Jesus' relationship. So with the film, you got two different storylines going on. You got the storyline with Jake and Jesus and them, pretty much reconciling their relationship, and then you have the storyline of what's going on with Jesus and his college aspects. You know what I mean? And looking at it now, I love the parallel. I love the way it was written. I love the way it was written, and I love the way it was directed. Because you see so many different people and so many different hands coming out, and they trying to grab hold of Jesus before he blows up, before he becomes this phenomenon. You got so many different hands and so many different people that they telling him that they love him, You know, there's this line in there. He says, "This is going to be this is going to be the most important decision of his life." He's only 18. He's only 17, 8. He's only 17, 18 years old. This is not going to be one of the most important decisions of his life. You know, he's going to have so many different things that he's going to do later on in life that really are going to be the most important decisions that he make in his life. But in that persuasiveness, you know, they're trying to persuade him. And these people know that he's young. They know that he's young. They know that he's impressionable. They know if they throw the right thing in front of him, that they will hook him. You know what I mean? And there's so many different things that tried to hook him in the movie. And I like the fact that Spike Lee wrote Jesus as a smart individual. He didn't write him as this gullible character who didn't know what was going on, where he's being pulled in so many different directions and he don't know what to do. Even though he says, you know, I got a lot to weigh in, I got a lot to do, I make my decision at the end of the week, because the movie takes place in the span of a week. So he says, you know, I'm going to make my decision at the end of the week. But Jesus is not stupid. He sees all the hands that are coming out. And, you know, there's a couple scenes where he has to check a couple people. You know, he checks his uncle, because his uncle is like, hey, you know, we took you in and we deserve a piece of the pie. You know, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? And he's like, yo, Unc, you know, what's going on? You know, now you telling me you want a piece of the pie? And his uncle is like, well, look, yeah, I deserve it. You know, we took care of you. We did this, we did that. So yeah, I deserve a piece of this pie. And it's just what you get the uncle doing that, and then you have the coach, you know, which the coach is kind of saying the same thing. You know, I see you like a son. You know, you're the most coachable player that I've ever had in my lifetime. But then the coach has his own intentions as well. And I think the coach has his intentions of him going to big state as well. But the coach has his hand in the pot. You know what I mean? And then Jesus' girlfriend, she's got her hand in the pot. You know, it's like, it's so many different people that got their claws into Jesus. And I know for a 17, 18-year-old kid to have that kind of pressure on them, you know what I mean? And I know that pressure has to be enormous. You know what I mean? And I'm like, this is a movie. So you can imagine all the real-time people that this happened to. You know what I mean? Where they high school phenomenon. It makes me think about Kobe Bryant. When Kobe Bryant was 17, 18 years old, he was this high school phenomenon who jumped straight to the NBA. So I can only imagine the kind of pressure that he was going through, you know what I'm saying? And you know, and God bless his soul, because he was one of the greatest players to ever do it. Like I said, I'm not that much into sports, but I'm not blind to what's going on, you know what I'm saying? So he was one of the greatest players to ever do it. I go back and I watch some of his highlight reels, and I'm like, damn, Kobe was a beast, you know what I'm saying? But seeing that in the movie just makes me think about, you know, how many of the real people that this has happened to. This is only one case. Can you imagine, like, so many of the different cases that this has happened to young teenagers that, you know, they're trying to make the right decision. They're trying to do the right thing that's best by them. But, you know, they're only 18 years old. And then they got parents riding their ass. They got people riding their ass. Family coming out of the woodworks, just all of a sudden claiming to be the best cousins and the best friends, the best friends in the world. You know, you got a whole lot of people riding your ass, want to ride your coattails because of what they think they can get for you. And Jesus has a moment in the movie where he breaks up with his girlfriend. I mean, she breaks up with him, but he pretty much at the point where he really doesn't give a damn. But he's kind of like, yo, you got your hand in the pot too. You know what I mean? And you see his frustration, even though it was done by Ray Allen, and Ray Allen is not a professional actor, and I'm pretty sure Spike Lee wanted an actual ball player to actually play this part, and Ray Allen did what he needed to do. He got the message across, you know what I mean? But you see the frustration that's going on with him, you know what I mean? You see that frustration. You see how he feels about the whole entire situation, you know what I mean? And you know, I think that was a great part of the story. Then you have the story with Jake's life. You know, you have the story about him and what he was going through, him trying to repair his relationship with his son, and then he got his own personal demons that he's got to fight. You know what I mean? And I know one thing that I noticed, which I didn't notice back in the day when I watched it, that it could be a possibility that Jake was an actual alcoholic. You know what I mean? Because I think two of his breakdown points in the movie was when he was actually drinking. And I don't know if a lot of people caught on to that, and I guess people probably did catch on to it. I know me, I didn't catch on to it until the last time I watched it, where when he accidentally kills his wife, he was actually drinking. And this is at the point where he pretty much pushes Jesus over the edge. They're on the basketball court. It's a flashback. They're on the basketball court. They're playing. And he pushes Jesus too far to the point where Jesus just kind of just quits and gives up on the game. And, you know, mind, Jesus is a child at this time. He's, like 8 years old. He quits, gives up on the game, goes back upstairs, goes back home to go to eat. And then Jake follows him. And he follows him upstairs. And it's pretty much this argument between father and son, you know what I mean? And, you know, of course, mama tries to intervene, and in him trying to get the best of his son, so to say, he ends up pushing his wife into the stove. She bangs her head, and he pretty much kills her, which was an accident. You know what I mean? It was an accident, but he still had to serve his time for the murder. You know what I mean? So you see that demon, and then it comes out again. It comes out of Jake again when he attacks Lala. He attacks the side boyfriend, because she has more than one boyfriend. She has Jesus, and she has another boyfriend on the side who wants their piece of the pie from Jesus as well. You know what I mean? But he goes on a little moment with the alcohol, and when I was watching that, I was like, okay, yeah, that's another one of his issues. You know, he has that issue with the alcohol. You know, so, you know, like I said, we all have our flaws, and with Jake, he's coming into his own. He's on his own mission. You know, he wants to do this thing for the warden because it's going to give him a reduced sentence, so to say. But he also knows that, hey, I gotta fix this relationship with my son. You know what I mean? Because you can kind of tell it wasn't always like that until the mama's killed. You know what I mean? So Jake has to come to grips with that, and he comes to grips with it. And him and Jesus have their moments of bonding, so to say, in the way that they need to bond for the time that is passed. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, I think with the situation happening the way it is, I think it was beautiful the way it played out. You know, I think the way it played out, and also too the way it was acted. You know, that's another thing too. I'm gonna get to that too. But I think it was played out well. You know, and like I said, you know, Jake has his own demons that he has to face, and I think he faces them toward as the movie goes on, and as we get to the climax of the film. You know, he comes to grips of what's going on, and he kind of comes to the acceptance that, hey, I might not ever be able to reconcile this relationship with my son, but I'm gonna do it in the best form that I can. And he pretty much does it in the form of a basketball game. You know, he tells Jesus, hey, listen, I got this letter, this is why I'm out, which he tells him early in the movie why he actually got out. But he's like, look, I got this letter, you played me, you beat me. You know, if I beat you, he tells Jesus, if I beat you, sign a letter and go to Big State. If you beat me, then you can pretty much cast me out for the rest of your life or whatever. You know, and they end up playing the game, and ultimately Jesus ends up winning. But in a result of him winning that game, I think, or I would like to say, I believe that it closed a lot of open wounds. But it also opened up a new chapter between him and Jake. You know what I mean? So it closed a lot of old wounds. You know, he tells him, you know, you can hate me forever for killing your mother. You know, there's nothing I can do about it. You can help me hate me forever, but ultimately you got to get that hatred out of your heart. You know what I mean? And then I think by him saying that kind of gives Jesus the awakening that, okay, yeah, I've been hating this man all this time, and there really isn't anything I can do about it. You know what I mean? But, you know, the only thing I can really do is move on. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what kind of happens toward, you know, the ending of the film, that they both kind of come to grips where Jake is like, okay, listen, it's a possibility that my son can hate me forever. You know, and if he chooses to hate me forever, then so be it. and Jesus is more like, okay, I have to forgive him. You know, it's I can't say it's not his fault. It is his fault, but it wasn't to the point where he did it intentionally. You know, so he has to forgive him. You know what I mean? And I believe that was the ultimate end game to what happens at the end of the film. You know what I mean? So for those of you who haven't seen this movie, check it out. Great, another great gem by Spike Lee. You know what I mean? It's another great gem, and I think those who have seen it, they enjoy the game and look deep into the into the movie. And there's a whole lot of stuff in the movie, so I don't want to give it all to you, all to you guys. Go out there, see the movie, watch it trust me, you're gonna have to watch it maybe 2 or 3 times to actually really get into the meat of the movie. You're not gonna get it on the first time, because I didn't get it on the first time. I think this is like my fifth time watching this movie, and last time I watched, I'm still pulling stuff from the film. You know what I mean? So it's one of the movies you can go back and watch over and over again and get different things from it. You know what I mean? So direction, as I said before, direction is beautiful. Spike Lee always doing your thing, even though there's some movies that I ain't too keen on with Spike Lee, but you know, he did his thing in this movie. I enjoyed the direction. I enjoyed the story. Yeah, like I said, told y'all before, I'm a sucker for a good story. You know what I mean? So the story was great, you know, the direction was great, and Spike Lee just has a style. You know, for those of y'all who watch Spike Lee movies, y'all know his style, y'all know what he does. You know, he does his little quick cuts of different flashbacks and different things, and the score that's inside the movie that plays throughout the entire film. You know, I love that about Spike Lee movies. It always, between the score and how he films, it always gives the scene a certain tone where, that's what I say, man, you know, to me, the score in the film is always important, and your score can drive the emotion of how you feel while something's going on in the film. You know what I mean? It depends. To me, it depends on the music. If the music's right for the scene, then it can convey a lot. You can get a lot from it. You know what I mean? Acting is awesome. You know what I mean? I could talk about Denzel all day, but let me get to the other people. Like I said before, Ray Allen, not an actor. He's a basketball player. It's cool. Understand. Those who are not actors, I give them a pass, because I understand that, okay, you need somebody who needs to be a real ball player to actually pull off the character of Jesus Shuttleworth. I don't think you can have too many actors that's going to pull off the expertise of being a baller like Ray Allen did. Now, did he kind of fall? Was he kind of flat with the acting? Yeah, but I get the point. I get what it's for. You know, I don't shoot him down for it. You know, it drove it home. It did what it needed to do. And I want to say this. I don't know if this was Rosario Dawson's first role, but I know for me, this put my eyes on Rosario Dawson from the first moment I saw her in this movie. And I love what Rosario Dawson does. You know what I mean? She's been in so many different films. She was in this. She was in Men in Black 2. She was in Alexander with Colin Farrell. Her and Denzel did another movie, Unstoppable, with the train movie. So she's been in a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? She's been one of those actresses that I enjoy seeing on screen. I love seeing Rosario Dawson. Who else is in this film? Jim Brown is in this film. He plays one of the parole officers. He plays one of the parole officers that's actually watching Jake the whole time, and Jim Brown is just funny, man. I like to see Jim Brown playing that kind of smug, don't give a damn type kind of character. His partner, I can't remember I don't know the name of the actor, so I'm not even gonna act like I know the name of the actor, but they bounce off each other pretty well. There's a couple of familiar faces that Spike Lee always use. Bill Nunn, he plays the uncle. John Turturro, he plays one of the coaches for Tech U. What's the guy's name? I want to say his name was Roger Smith. I'm not going to try to pronounce his middle name. I want to say his middle name is Roger Governor Smith, something like that. But he always plays the biracial dude in Spike Lee's films. You know, he has kind of like I don't want to say he's typecast in the movie, but he kind of has a certain lane that he's always in Spike Lee movies. But he's always in Spike Lee movies, which is always a joy to see him as well. And of course, we got the amazing Denzel Washington in this film. And man, what more can I say about Denzel Washington? Denzel Washington is a national fucking treasure. National treasure, man. I mean, his acting ability is even before Training Day, because this is way before Training Day. This is what Training Day came out in 2001, and this was in '98. But Denzel Washington been doing his thing. Denzel Washington been doing his thing for years. He been doing his thing since Cry Freedom, since Glory, since Mississippi Masala, and I don't even know if a lot of people remember that movie that he was in with Charles Dutton. He's been doing his thing for a long time. I just think like with me, I think a lot of eyes have been pried open. I mean, I can't say that though, because I was in the Denzel when he did Ricochet with John Lithgow. You know what I mean? So I've been into Denzel Washington ever since, but he's got scenes where a lot of times I don't know if Denzel Washington is actually acting. I think he has a lot of moments where his own personality comes out in a lot of these scenes. You know, he has a scene where he's talking to Jesus on the boardwalk, and he's telling him why he named him. And it wasn't because of the biblical Jesus. It wasn't because of Jesus Christ. It was because of Earl the Pearl Monroe, where he was called Jesus on the playgrounds in North Philadelphia. But I feel like Denzel Washington kind of tapped out and became himself, and then he jumped back into the role of being Jake Shuttleworth. But Denzel Washington is phenomenal, man. He's a phenomenal actor. Forever will be. Even to this day, I can watch him now and just be captivated by what he does. All right. So getting to the scale, we're gonna put He Got Game. We're gonna give He Got Game 4 thumbs up because for a story, for direction, for acting. I don't really have I don't have much nostalgia for this movie because, like I said, I watched it when I was watched it in college. I was 22. I think I was 22 when I watched this movie. I think I was 22. I was like 22 when I watched this movie, but it doesn't have the nostalgic feel that I have about the movies back in the 80s and things like that. But I gave it 4 thumbs up, and you know, will I watch it again? Yeah, I'll watch it again, and more than likely, if I watch it again, I'm probably gonna pull a lot more from it again, like I did this time when I watched it. All right. So, like I said, 4 thumbs up for He Got Game. So, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Got more videos to come. Y'all know how we do. This is Marshall. This is Shortman Filmworks, and these are the Everyday Man's film reviews. Y'all take care, and I will see y'all on the next one.